Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to Coffee Talk! So today, we're going to talk about alien bodies in Mexico. Don. So unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, you've probably seen the footage of these alien bodies that some scientists presented to Mexican Congress, and they claim they're of alien origin. Don. Before I get too deeper into this story, I would like to thank everyone who supports the channel. If you'd like to be a supporter of the channel and keep these videos going, you can click on the More button or the description button there underneath my face, and a menu will drop down with links to my PayPal and Cash App and P.O. Box and all that good stuff. You can even send me an email if you like. So before we get into the story of these alien bodies in Mexico, I do have to preface that Coffee Talk is for things I find interesting but don't necessarily believe. I might believe parts of it. I need some coffee to swallow. And I want you to know that I'm always going to be coming at anything I do from the angle of an exorcist and a Christian minister, so there's always that. And I want to talk about demon bodies versus demon spirits. You know, as an exorcist, I encounter exclusively demon spirits, not physical demons, right? And if you watch the channel, you know that I have a kind of a strong held belief that aliens are demons. They're the same thing. The gods of old are demons. They're aliens. It's all the same thing. Because what are demons but creatures that were not created here? As an exorcist, I encounter them in spirit form. So how does that work? Are these two different things? The aliens that show up in the demons in human form, the lizard people, the grays, the red-headed giants, all of these Nephilim type creatures that exist in the physical realm, are they the same things I deal with in the spiritual realm? And the answer, I believe, is yes. And what you have is these creatures, these demons, whether you want to call them aliens, gods of old, whatever you want to call them, mythical creatures, they do exist in the physical form, either somewhere off planet, on the planet, or inside the planet. Hollow Earth, don't. But they do have a physical presence. What they are psychically advanced beings that have the power to interact with us through some sort of electromagnetic means directly to our minds. So they're capable of telepathy. And so demons that possess people are simply taking control of their neurons, their thinking, and their logic through some telepathic means. But I do believe that all demons have a physical body, okay? But today we're talking about aliens, and I believe that aliens are demons. And so let's get to the Mexico alien bodies. So they presented these bodies to the Congress of Mexico. It's all over the internet. And the thing you'll find striking right off the bat is they're itty bitty little guys. They're like maybe 22 inches. They're like 2 feet tall. So they're very like knee high little guys, right? And what's really striking is how their face their face and head shape looks exactly like E.T. from the Steven Spielberg movie E.T. Is it possible that Steven Spielberg knew something we don't know about aliens and their true appearance? Don't. And I do think that aliens run the gamut from red-headed giants to Nordics to lizard people, frog people. Ancient Egyptian art suggests they're bird people. And what they are creations from other places. I think that's the definition of an alien. It's also the definition of an angel or a demon. They're God's creation from someplace else. So, and I think they come in many forms. There are many races of them. But these alien bodies seem to be of the diminutive, short, little itty-bitty guys. And as soon as I saw them, first of all, let's talk about what they found. According to the scientists that are presenting this evidence, they've gone through extensive DNA testing on these bodies. And the reason they're so well preserved, they're from about 800 AD, or 800 years ago. No, 800 AD. So, they're over 1,000 years old, these bodies. And they were preserved because they were found in the bottom of an ancient mine. And this mine is mining a mineral, which I can't remember the name of, but it acts as a natural preservative to flesh. So they're very well preserved for being so old. They're mummified essentially. And but the DNA testing on these bodies show that they only have 70% in common with humans. So they're 30% non-human DNA. Now, to give you an example, every animal on Earth is within 15% of humans. So they're all animals are at least 85% have the same DNA as humanity, and that suggests that we all come from the same planet. We have the core same DNA, the same physical body makeup. We're just variations from a dog to a human. And so when it comes to DNA testing, then for something to be 30% non-human means it has to be outside of our evolutionary chain. It has to be outside of the known makeup of genetics for any creature on Earth. In other words, it's proof that they're not from this planet. Don't. They also x-rayed these bodies, and they found that within one of the two specimens, which must be the feminine, the female, that they found eggs inside the body still intact. And the way they described the reproductive method for these creatures is very much like birds. And there's a lot of things about them that suggest that they're birdmen, that they're little bitty birdmen, because their bones are light and strong like a bird. Their skull has a lot in common with bird skulls. And so they don't have wings. They weren't flying creatures apparently. They're bipedal, have regular legs like a human, except their extremities are very, very thin and slender. But the reproductive system of these creatures shows eggs in multiple stages of development. And if you've ever butchered out old laying hens, you know that, and I have eat eggs that I've taken right out of the inside of a chicken, right? Because there's the one ready to be laid, it's ready to go, it's got a hard shell. The one behind it's got a little softer shell, still edible. One behind that's just got a membrane, but the egg's still there, and the shell hasn't developed yet. And the other one's just basically like a blood clot. And that's what they have found through x-rays of this creature, that they had eggs in their development ready to be laid, apparently. And so that relates them in some way to birds. And just amazing stuff. This is coming out. This is part of the disclosure. Look at the video I did recently within the last couple of months. Disclosure. Why now? Why are they disclosing now? And you give you some of the reasons why they're disclosing the existence of these alien creatures. So, since I tend to relate aliens and demons back to mythology and folklore, it started me looking at the size of these little guys, okay? And what do we have in folklore that suggests that they've been around for a long time, either living here or visiting here or from under the earth, however you want to look at it. They're from someplace, right? And these could also be the demons' bodies that they use their telepathy to influence us. Isn't it something to know that a 24-inch alien might be responsible for most of the problems in your life? this little demon whispering in your ear telepathically. But I tend to go back and look at all of the mostly European folklore about the little folk, the fair ones, the fairies, the leprechauns, the elves, right? They're all diminutive, but with high intellect, some supernatural abilities, and more than anything, they're kings of deception. And what do we know about devils? The devil's main power is to deceive you, is to trick you, right? The devil's always trying to pull you into a bargain he has no intention of keeping. And this is very much the nature of the leprechaun. So what in folklore are leprechauns, and why do I think these little aliens might very well be of the leprechaun or elf type, right? So what is a leprechaun? A leprechaun is simply an elf or a fairy, a small person that has been ostracized by their group and becomes a loner and lives alone in the woods. And according to folklore, the reason why leprechauns were kind of kicked out of elven society is because they wouldn't marry. They were kind of curmudgeons and eternal bachelors that just want to be left alone in their little hobbit hole in the woods. But they're very territorial. They're not far from the comedic role of Leprechaun the movie, in that they can be violent and vicious and bloody, but they're mainly just vile and nasty and mean. And uh, one of the strangest old folklore that goes clear back to the 800s was a story about a king who, when came back from conquering, took a slave girl and went to have a day at the beach, and he fell asleep on the beach, and these three leprechauns grab him by the ankles and start dragging him in the water, and when the water touches his foot, he wakes up. And of course, he's a lot bigger than them and more physically capable of them, and he catches one around the shoulders and neck, right? And the other two run away. And then the strangest thing, this is kind of weird, but it's also very interesting, that when a leprechaun is caught, according to folklore, they will suckle onto the nipple of the person attacking them and act like a baby. And when this king asked him why he was doing this, why he just jumped on him and started sucking his nipple, is because you say that's the way that leprechauns submit and ask for mercy. But it's also interesting to think that something that small might appeal to the maternal or paternal instincts of a human being by impersonating a baby and acting like they're a baby because they're baby sized, right? And so anyway, you've got these, eventually he tricks the king, right? And he gets the best of him. That's the way every leprechaun story ends, that you think, well, here's another great leprechaun story. Apparently a guy walking through the woods encounters a leprechaun, and he catches him, he gets him by the neck. That's apparently the way to get him, is by the neck. He's got this leprechaun by the neck, and he forces the leprechaun to tell him where his magic pot of gold is stashed, and it's stashed under the roots of this tree, kind of buried, and you can see it sticking out a little bit, but it's, he just uncovers the leaves and go, there's my fortune. And I think it's because the guy needs shovels or something, or help to dig all this fortune out, but he makes the leprechaun promise that he ties a red ribbon around the tree, and he makes the leprechaun promise that he won't remove the red ribbon from that tree, so he can come back and find the fortune and get it. And the leprechaun agrees. If he lets him go, he will not take off the ribbon from around that tree. So he lets the leprechaun go. The guy goes to town, gets whatever help he needs. He comes back only to find that every tree in the forest has a red ribbon around it, right? So leprechauns always trick you. And this is very much how demons operate when they're manifesting through psychic means and telepathy to affect human beings. So is there a den of these things somewhere, hooked up to a virtual reality machine, or just using their own psychic power to mess with us? What do you think about these bodies that they found in Mexico? Are they leprechauns? Are they at the base of what these myths are based on? You've also got fairies. What's another one? Sprites. And they all have something in common. They're mischievous, and they live in the woods. And it's a real interesting thing to go on the internet and type in real life leprechauns or leprechauns caught on video. And you can start to see that there's a lot of video evidence of these little creatures. I personally have seen similar type creatures in the spirit realm, if that makes sense. That sometimes when I'll move into a house that's been previously occupied, or in the case of my property in Texas, I moved onto a place that had been occupied by Native Americans. And well, people used to come out and ask me if they could search my property for arrowheads, because when I looked it up, my property was right at the base of several different wars during the Indian Wars, and a couple of massacres within just a few miles of my house. And when I moved into that place, me and my entire family would be sitting watching TV, or just, talking amongst ourselves, and then movement out of the corner of our eye would catch us, and we would turn, and we would see these creatures about 18 to 20 inches tall, under 2 feet, that for me, I never saw them focused and in detail. They were a black blur. You could tell legs were running, and they had a little like, I don't know, like a leprechaun run to them, or shuffle, the way they move their feet. And but that's all I could pick up on. I couldn't focus on detail before they went around a corner and disappeared. And everyone in my family, even the kids, reported seeing this type of thing. And until I got to work for the devil fighting church and learned how to clean my house and cleanse my property, we were continuing to see these until I went through that process. And I was able to drive the spirits away. Now, were those physical beings using some kind of cloaking mechanism? That's another thing that you'll see in videos of diminutive or a leprechaun or fairy type of video that's out there where they catch this stuff on video. They tend to have the ability to turn whatever color that their surroundings are, like a chameleon. So they have a shape shifting ability. They can disappear. This has also been said of Bigfoot. This has been said of other mythical creatures. And I think that's one of the advantages that allow these entities to stay hidden and affect us mainly through psychic vibrations and telepathy, electromagnetic interference with our brain in some way. And so, these creatures, were they real? The little creatures that I saw, or was that like residual energy? That demons can produce a specter. They can look very real. They can affect your mind to where either you're envisioning it or they actually have some way of teleporting their image through something like what's that technology? Drawing a blank, fill in the blank. But it's the technology where you can project an image, a hologram. Maybe it's some kind of holographic image that they're trying to put forth, and you can see it kind of like the specter of a ghost, for instance, that disappears. Maybe that's what I was seeing, a projected energy. Were they tapping into my brain, or was there some physical entity in my house, some actual physical creature like these Mexican UFO bodies of aliens they found down there and presented to Congress? Was there some physicality to it, and he was using some kind of cloaking mechanism to keep me from being able to see him in detail? I always tend to think it's just a spiritual apparition or a specter, and that it's projected through some kind of telepathy. There's no doubt about it that when it comes to aliens, grays get a lot of attention. They're more the 4-foot range. They're not as small as these little bitty aliens they found in Mexico. They found them in Peru, actually, and they were presented to the Mexican government because I think it was a Mexican scientific organization that discovered them in Peru. And, they've been around since 2017, but they've been testing them this whole time. There's another thing about those bodies that I forgot to mention, that when they x-rayed them, they found these metallic implants that are basically under the skin, but they have some kind of technological purpose. And they're in these bodies as well, and you can see them in x-rays. Basically circuit panels. They're augmented. They're cyborgs. They're not just flesh and blood. They're not just bird people. They also have some kind of implants. So these technological implants could very well be responsible for the cloaking, for their ability to seemingly disappear. And it could also be how they access your mind. It could be using technology. There's technology in these alien bodies. Now, are they simply spacemen from another planet? Are they the leprechauns and fairies of old that we're just now discovering? Are they something different? One thing about Coffee Talk, it's open. You can tell me what you think these things are. Are they real aliens? I don't really buy that it's a hoax, because first of all, it's Congress, right? So these people were vetted. They just didn't bring up some fool with a made up story in a stone chiseled statue passing it off as an alien body. These things have been studied since 2017. Full DNA testing's been done on them by multiple organizations. Multiple laboratories have done this. The x-rays are there. They have MRIs, and they can see inside and outside of these things. And they were once living creatures capable of reproduction. And what were they doing here? Did they crash their spaceship, or have they always been amongst us? And has folklore explained them away as spirits, sprites, fairies, magical creatures, right? It's one thing I can tell you is that, the lizard people and the Nordics and the red-headed giants and the grays get all of the attention from ufology. And they seem to forget about these little guys, that some of them are 12 inches tall, right? There's stories. Gulliver's Travel is kind of based on this, where Gulliver somehow ends up on a continent where everything is tiny and all the people are little. They're called Lilliputians. I used that word earlier. They're literally, their race is called Lilliputians, right? And of course, you remember from childhood, from the stories and movies, they tie him down with many strands of thread and stake it into the ground, and they're able to keep him immobilized rather, while they decide what to do with him, and they just basically outnumber him. And it makes me go back to a horror movie. It was something that's called the Trilogy of Horror, I think is what it was called, from the 70s. Karen Black, I think, it might be the person that starred in it. But one of the segments is about this woman who finds a little crazy looking tribal doll about 18 inches, 14 inches tall. And she takes it back home thinking she's found this kind of cool item to keep in her house. And the thing turns out to be an angry, mean, demonic, savage creature who chases her around the house with a butcher knife through the entire movie. Right? Does that sound familiar? What about Chucky? Don't. Why are we afraid of these little vicious, mean, doll-sized creatures? It's because it's in our genetic memory, right? It's in our folklore. It's somehow, some way, we know these little creatures are more dangerous than a Bigfoot. They're more dangerous than a lizard man. They're more dangerous than the swamp creature. They're definitely more dangerous than grays. But why is that? And it goes back to their cunning, their ability to appear and disappear, their ability to come against you in numbers. In the case of the fairies or the Lilliputians or any of those elven creatures, they tend to outnumber their opponents. And even the leprechaun himself, who gets caught on the regular basis in folklore, he always outsmarts his opponent and gets away with the gold. It's one great story of fairies or leprechauns, where a musician, a fiddler, he's leaving the saloon or the pub late at night, and he's wandering through the woods with his fiddle, and he encounters these little people, and they're dancing, and he's kind of enchanted by it, right? So he starts fiddling for them, and they start dropping gold coins in his pocket as he fiddles, and then they bring him all these different exotic cocktails, and he gets a good buzz on, and he parties all night with these fairies, right, playing fiddle for him. And he leaves with his pockets full of gold, his belly full of beer, and he thinks he's hit the jackpot. And he stumbles home at daybreak, and he knocks on the door, and another man answers his house because the door's locked. He can't get in his own house, and so he beats on the door for his wife to let him in. And another man answers the door and said, "Hey, you got no business being here, because you've been gone for 2 years, and I've married your wife. Everyone thought you were dead. So go away. This is not your house. This is my house," right? And then when he reaches in his pockets for the gold that he earned that night, he takes out his pockets, and the gold coins are horse dung. So his pockets are full of poo-poo. We're a horse doo-doo. Sorry. That's a funny story to me. So these fairies or leprechauns are tricksters, which goes very much in line with what I know about demons. Everybody from horror movies wants you to think that demons are like bloodthirsty, and they have that side to them, or that element. But really, they're arrogant tricksters who like to fool you, who like to play word games with you, who like to try to confuse you. Who's the author of confusion? The Bible says that the devil is the author of confusion. And that goes right in line with leprechauns and fairies. They're very much demonic in nature, and not the kind of horror movie demonic, but the mess with your head, make you do your own self in, trick you into self-destruction kind of demons. And this is very, very much in line with another demonic creature from Middle Eastern lore, the jinn or the genie. You know, the classic story of the genie giving you 3 wishes. And be careful what you wish for, you might get it, right? So the genie always tricks us so that we end up leaving the situation in a worse position than we were when we thought we'd won. When you capture the genie, you can make him give you 3 wishes. And the thing is, he'll twist he'll hold you to, he'll play word games. Kind of sounds like Democrats. He'll twist the truth, right? Get you to say something that you think means one thing, and then go, "Oh, this is what you really meant," and not give you the things you wanted, or give you so much of the thing you wanted that it kills you, right? So this concept of a demon or a jinn or a leprechaun or a fairy or a sprite or a brownie. All of these are different names for the same thing, I think. And maybe it's the thing they found physically in these bodies in Peru and are parading now before the House or the Congress of Mexico. So they do have something in common nature wise, all of this folklore, and it very much jibes with my experience dealing with the spiritual apparitions, the spiritual manifestation, or you could say the not telekinetic, but telepathic ability that demons have to get inside your head. That when I'm exorcising demons and I am driving demons off of people, that's the main thing I encounter is this same kind of personality that's demonstrated in the Leprechaun, demonstrated in the stories of the sprites and the fairies of European lore, the genies or the jinn. Is that what they found in Mexico? A jinn, a genie, a bird creature? Tell me what you think. I'm getting low on coffee and getting low on time. Special thanks to all of you who support the channel. Financially and with your kind words, your likes, your subscription, and your emails that you send, your messages on the message board here. But in the comments, what do you think they found? Do you think it's all a giant hoax? Do you not believe that aliens exist? Have you bought the idea that aliens and demons are the same thing? It's just demons are the telepathic manifestation of a physical creature, either on another planet, in another dimension, above the earth, in the hollow moon, under the earth. Where do you think they come from? And what did they find in Peru that they're showing us now in Mexico? And eggs. Eggs. These things are egg layers. Don't dinosaurs. Dinosaurs? All right. We'll see you next time on Coffee Talk.